Hey guys, it's Forza or Dave here, and today I've got a video for you guys covering 10 tips and things to focus on to develop the best aim you can in Valorant. Valorant's current player base in closed beta covers a wide range of players, different skill levels in FPS games, as well as varied backgrounds in gaming in general. Some players might have been spamming Counter-Strike since CS 1.6, and therefore they've probably got the aiming fundamentals down. But other players might be long-term League of Legends fans, looking to get into Riot's first new standalone game, Valorant, as their first proper PC FPS. Whatever category you fall into, I'm hoping that at least one of these things I talk about in this video will be helpful to you to becoming a better player. So, if it does, make sure you like the video and subscribe and turn on the notification bell below. Now, let's get started. First things first is the basic stuff, your mouse settings outside of the game. Many of you will hopefully already have this kind of stuff covered, but for those of you newer to this, I thought I'd cover it quickly anyway. Firstly, navigate to your Windows mouse properties, and on the pointer options tab, ensure that your pointer speed is set to 6 out of 11 on the scale, which should be bang in the middle, and also make sure that enhanced pointer precision is unchecked. These Windows settings are a standard for all PC gamers, and it makes it so that mouse acceleration isn't introduced to mess up your aim in-game. Next, I'm assuming you already have a gaming mouse with its own drivers and software. If you're still using some cheapo mouse, or dare I say it, a laptop trackpad, then please invest a little bit of cash into a solid gaming mouse. I use the G502 Hero by Logitech, and I absolutely love it. But have a look around at reviews and get yourself a solid gaming mouse that's comfortable in your hand. Anyway, as I said, your mouse will have an associated bit of software to dial in two key settings, your DPI, or dots per inch, and your polling rate. DPI is essentially like an out-of-game sensitivity, and it's a contested topic, but I recommend either a DPI of 800 or 400 to start. If you're used to a really high sensitivity, then turning to a lower DPI like this can be weird to get used to, but it's definitely worth it for helping with some of those small aim movements that will make all the difference in game. So 800 or 400 are good choices here. Polling rate is how many times the mouse input is registered per second, and so in general, higher is better. The highest setting for most mice that I've seen is 1000 Hz, so if you can set it to that, then do so. If you're running a weak CPU, however, then you can try dropping this to 500 and see if it yields a bit less stuttering in game when moving your mouse. So in that scenario, try both and see what fits best. So that's all the basic mouse stuff out of the way. Now let's cover a consistently overlooked topic, posture. Posture is so important for our general health during long game sessions, but it also affects your aim. So many people end up slouched over with a bad back and a sore wrist, and that doesn't exactly sound like it's going to help you get more headshots, now does it? My general advice is that your arms should form a right angle at your elbow joint while sitting at your desk. Now this advice is widely known amongst ergonomics experts, and a focus on posture like this gives us all a more consistent starting point to build our in-game aim on. Okay, let's finally jump in game and start talking about what we can do here. Sensitivity is a topic which actually grinds my gears on forums. What's the best sensitivity? What sensitivity does Shroud use? These are all the kind of questions that are just the exact same, they don't matter, or at least the answer isn't that significant. There is no general best sensitivity, no matter what people tell you. And setting your sensitivity to Shroud sensitivity isn't going to suddenly turn you into an aim god ex-CS player turned Twitch now mixer streamer. Now, that's not to say that you won't become an aim god with Shroud sensitivity, with patience and practice, and that sensitivity might become your best sensitivity. But that's the key point here. Your best sensitivity is yours, and it will take time to reach that point where you know exactly what it is. So pick a sensitivity that feels at least a little decent to start with, and just play with it. As long as you aren't completely missing every shot in game, you need to stick with that sensitivity and develop muscle memory, so that when an enemy appears a certain distance from your crosshair, you can start flicking to him more consistently and quickly. Don't just change your sense every day. I see so many people doing this, trying to change their sensitivity every game, every day. That's like wearing a different pair of shoes on every run that you do every day. Yeah, you're still running, but you're not actually developing a consistent base to improve off of. Consistency is key, so stick to a sensitivity and just accept that some games you're going to suck, but over time, you'll be improving. Speaking of improving, jumping straight into a game after a period of not playing can sometimes lead to a few bad rounds on your part at the start of the game. Just don't be that guy who throws away rounds 1 to 5 because you can't aim. Instead, get a quick warm-up in before the game. So many people just completely ignore warm-ups. Luckily, Valorant includes a shooting range and a couple of bomb planting scenarios around objectives that you can replay with bots. Creating yourself a warm-up routine before you play, even just for 5 minutes, can greatly improve your aim when you begin your first proper game of the session. Remember, there's only 5 people on the enemy team that you can even kill, and you only have 1 life per round. So surely it sounds better and more productive to shoot 100 bots' heads first, so that then you can hopefully deal with a couple of the real enemies when it comes to the first game. You're warming up your whole body here. Hands, fingers, wrists, eyes, and most importantly, your mind. So get your warm-up in and go for that first round pistol ace. Now, let's move on to something I see so many players doing wrong consistently, which just makes the game harder for themselves. Imagine you're pushing long A on Haven, and you know that the last enemy is defending from Heaven. Now, what sounds better? A, walking aimlessly round the corner, looking at leg height. Or B, walking around the corner, prepping your crosshair in the general head height area on Heaven. I'm hoping all of you have chose option B there, and if you somehow didn't, then I've honestly lost all hope. But no, seriously, have good crosshair placement at all times. It's so crucial to winning gunfights and challenging angles in Valorant. Your crosshair should never be looking towards the floor, unless you're specifically taking out some sort of enemy utility, which is on the floor, of course. You want to maximize your chance of an enemy essentially appearing or walking directly into your crosshair, which actually happens quite a lot in this game. Then, all the hard work is already done for you. You basically just have to click and control the spray a bit, but we'll come back to that in a bit. As you play Valorant more and more, you'll start knowing all the angles where people can play from. As you approach a corner to a new sightline, you need to clear each potential spot an enemy can be at one by one without overexposing yourself to the remaining angles. This way, you're taking control of the engagement, rather than just charging around, hoping that either you guess the right spot for the enemy to be in, or that the enemy is just too bad to actually kill you. So stay calm, clear each angle, and then proceed smartly. I can't tell you guys how important good crosshair placement is to making sure that you get those high scores and carry your team. Let's talk about crosshairs. I mentioned in my previous Valorant in-depth settings guide that I'd adjusted my crosshair to my personal preferences. Now, I believe that the best crosshair is one that's small and inobtrusive, but it's still well defined to allow for quickly lining up your shots. You can see my current crosshair settings in the back here, which leads to a small green crosshair. The colour's personal preference, and with the varied ability colours in this game, it's not actually obvious yet what the best colour to use is, so just go on personal preference for now. I've also stumbled on a helpful crosshair settings tip on Reddit, which is really helpful for spray patterns, but I'll come back to that after I've explained the gun recoil. If you've played Counter-Strike before, then spray patterns will be extremely familiar to you. But for those of you who haven't played many shooters, or even if you have played other shooters other than CS, you might not have come across spray patterns like this before. In Valorant, your first shot, assuming you aren't moving, will be directly on your crosshair, straight down the middle. However, as you begin spraying your weapon, the bullets will begin to climb upwards and then seemingly side to side. If you do your sprays up against the wall, you'll notice that the bullet hole pattern is consistent every spray. This shows that gun's spray pattern. Every gun has its own spray pattern, but in general, the spray will go up and then side to side. To keep your spray centered, you'll therefore need to move your mouse to oppose that spray. So, for example, and keep track here, if the spray goes up and right to start, then goes left and back to the right, then you need to move your mouse opposite to that. So down to the left, and then right, and then back to the left. A bit confusing, I know, when I'm explaining it, but when you start practicing your sprays, it will become second nature to you. Now, there's two helpful tips to add here. Firstly, Riot have actually been really kind, and in this game, the gun model will rotate as it's firing. This has made it so you can always see where the spray is going, and now it's far easier to counteract that spray with a mouse movement. So if the gun starts swinging left, you just need to pull a bit to the right on your mouse, and vice versa. Thanks, Riot. Now, let's go back to that crosshair tip I mentioned. A Reddit user called Hellrickham made a post showing that if you add outer lines to your crosshair in the settings, with an offset of 40, which is the max you can put it at, as shown in my settings, then the peak vertical point of your spray actually perfectly lines up with that outer line you just made. Now this makes it so simple now to begin with your crosshair centered on the target, and then as you spray, pull down so that the top outer line is now the point that you're aiming with and essentially becomes your crosshair. I'll link that post in the description below if that doesn't make sense from my end, but it's been really helpful to me. Now, I've mentioned my settings video previously, and I'm going to shamelessly plug it again here. These settings in that video will give you the highest FPS you can, which means absolutely everything in a game like Valorant. Higher frames per second and higher refresh rates lead to quicker reactions and better aim on your part. So follow that guide and make sure you aren't losing any valuable FPS. Also, if you're on a weaker system, it's definitely worth making sure you haven't got other programs open like internet browsers or game launchers and other resource hogs. Having programs like that open just lead to added latency in your system that can screw with your aim when you don't even know it. So just make sure that they're completely shut off and you'll have a much better experience in game. Another small tip I'm going to add in here, which most of you already know, but unless you're using a shotgun or a pistol like the Frenzy, and you're right up close to someone playing aggressively, you should not be running and shooting or jumping and shooting. Those movements completely throw off your spray pattern and make it just go all over the place, and you're bound to miss. So ideally, stop to get your spray off, or at least be slow walking, ready to fire back. Just a quick one I thought I'd add in there. And my final tip for today, which I've touched on multiple times throughout this video. Practice, and then practice some more. Guys, no one's born an aim god. It takes time and effort. You need to be playing the game with the intent to improve. If you have a bad game, oh well. Don't fall into a mindset of blaming teammates, giving up, or just calling bullshit on unlucky rounds. Instead, learn from those losses, learn from those mistakes, and come back clear-minded next game. I know it all sounds stupid, but mindset and playing to improve is truly the only way to get better at a game like Valorant, both in terms of aim, as well as things like ability usage and comms, which I'll cover in later videos. So there we go, guys. 10 tips and little things to focus on to improve your aim in Valorant. I hope that this video has helped you guys out in some way. I'm absolutely loving the closed beta for Valorant. I think it's a really great game, and I can't wait to see where Riot takes it in the future. I'm looking to keep on top of both playing the game to improve and get better consistently, as well as bring you guys high quality gameplay, guides, and other Valorant videos that I'm proud of. My name's Dave, and I hope to see you guys back here next time.